A pleasant day. This is Dr. Kat Dukeli from the Department of Preventive and Community Medicine. For this session, we shall talk about the epidemiology of tuberculosis and the natural history of the disease. Here are my objectives. At the end of the sessions, the students should be able to know the global and Philippine burden of tuberculosis, explain the policies and guidelines stated in the National TB Program Manual of Operating Procedures. So I guess you know this already. If not, these are the Sustainable Development Goals. It is actually a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and improve the lives and prospects of everyone, everywhere. And it is actually a 15-year plan from September 2015 to 2030. And these 17 goals apply to all countries, and they need to be carried out by all stakeholders. So I want to highlight Sustainable Developmental Goal number 3, which is good health and well-being. Under this, we have Target 3.3, which is fight communicable diseases, that by 2030, we should have ended the epidemics of AIDS, tuberculosis, malaria, and neglected tropical diseases, and combat hepatitis, waterborne diseases, and other communicable diseases. For this session, there is emphasis on tuberculosis and malaria. The natural history of tuberculosis agent would be the Mycobacterium species known as the Mycobacterium tuberculosis complex. So, of course, the reservoir is in humans, and the mode of transmission is like COVID-19, airborne droplet, and direct transmission. The incubation period is around 2 to 10 weeks from exposure, and the period of communicability, as long as viable tubercle bacilli are being discharged in the sputum, the patient remains contagious. As for the specimen, they're usually found in sputum. So, in the Global Tuberculosis Report in 2022, it showed that after an initial drop of reported TB cases in 2020, due to the disruptions to health services, including reduced access to diagnostic and treatment facilities and diversion of resources to combat the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a global recovery of reported cases, reaching the highest at 7.5 million in 2022. And this is due to the recovery in pandemic-related healthcare disruptions, and of course the increased post-pandemic travel and migration, among other reasons. Similar patterns also was seen in India, Indonesia, and the Philippines, reaching the peak of reported cases in 2022 after seeing a drop of reporting during the height of the pandemic in 2020. So, however, even with the increasing reporting, there was a trend for decrease in the number of TB deaths. So, the Western Pacific region here, where Philippines is included, has made significant strides in TB care and prevention, with a remarkable 53% reduction in TB deaths. And in spite of this, TB remained the second leading cause of death from an infectious disease after COVID-19 in 2022. So, looking at this graph, you could see the estimated actual number of TB deaths that happened between 2020 and 2022 as compared to the predicted number pre-pandemic trend. Okay, so the COVID-19 related disruptions resulted in about 500,000 excess deaths from TB from 2020 to 2022, which was way above the predicted number pre-pandemic period. So going to the most recent report of the global tuberculosis in 2024, the reported number of people newly diagnosed with TB was 8.2 million. So it was up from 7.5 million in 2022 and far above the levels of 5.8 million in 2020 and 6.4 million in 2021. So there was an increasing trend. Those newly diagnosed in 2022 and 2023 probably included a sizable backlog of people who developed TB in the previous years during the pandemic, but whose diagnosis and treatment was delayed due to the COVID-related disruptions. So here are the overarching findings of the Global TB Report in 2024. So TB returned to being the world's leading infectious disease killer, surpassing COVID-19 already. So it was also the leading killer of people with HIV and a major cause of death related to antimicrobial resistance. Second, 8 countries accounted for more than 2/3 of the global total. So these 8 countries is India, Indonesia, China, the Philippines, Pakistan, Nigeria, Bangladesh, and Congo. The top 5 alone accounted for more than half of the global total. Lastly, about 50% of people treated for TB and their households face total costs, may it be direct medical expenditures, direct non-medical expenditures, and indirect costs such as income losses that are very catastrophic, around more than 20% of annual household income, and it is far from the WHO NTB strategy target of 0. So from this report, there was a second United Nations high-level meeting on TB that was held in September of 2023. So the resulting political declaration reaffirms existing commitments and targets and include new ones for the period of 2023 to 2027. This is aimed to undertake a comprehensive review on the achievement of agreed tuberculosis goals at the national, regional, and even global levels in the 2018 political declaration, and to identify the gaps and solutions in order to accelerate progress towards ending tuberculosis epidemic by the year 2030. So here are the 8 countries with at least 100,000 incident TB cases in 2023. So here, the labels show the 8 countries that accounted for about 2/3 of the global number of people estimated to have developed TB in 2023. So number 1, of course, would be the overpopulated India, Indonesia, and China. We placed the 4th, followed by Pakistan, Nigeria, and Congo. Here we have the 5 countries with at least 1,000 multiple drug-resistant tuberculosis or rifampicin-resistant tuberculosis incident cases in 2023. Of course, Philippines again is included after India, Indonesia, China, and even the Russian Federation. Here, as you can see, the list of high-burden countries for TB, HIV-associated TB, and multiple drug-resistant, rifampicin-resistant TB in 2022 to 2025. you can see that among these infections of interest, there were areas of overlap or intersection. And looking here, you could see Philippines is included in those three, having TB, HIV-associated TB, and multiple drug-resistant tuberculosis and rifampicin-resistant tuberculosis. So, it's very unfortunate for us to be included here. So, the NTB strategy is a World Health Organization global plan to end the TB pandemic by the year 2035. So, its vision is a world with zero TB deaths, disease, and suffering from TB, of course. The key targets would include reducing TB incidence by 90% and TB deaths by 95% by the year 2035 as compared to the 2015 baseline. And of course, eliminating catastrophic costs for TB-affected household at zero. Okay? So, as you can see, going back to the 2025 Global Tuberculosis Report, there was indeed an increase in household facing catastrophic costs due to TB, which was far from zero. As you can see, we have been included in the high burden list of tuberculosis globally. So what now is the actual burden of TB in the Philippines? Of course, we are the fourth of the 30 high-burden countries in terms of TB incidence per 100,000 population, and that would consist 6.8% of the global incidence of TB. So the major contributors to the global increase between the years 2020 and 2023 were Indonesia, the Philippines, and Myanmar, in that order. So, top 30 high-burden countries in terms of TB/HIV incidence, and we rank second of 30 high-burden countries in terms of the multiple drug-resistant TB incidence, consisting 7.5% of global cases. So, the leading is India, which consists of 27% of global cases. As for our country, it's the 9th leading cause of mortality in 2022 and 8th leading cause of morbidity in 2023. So here, the NTP or the National TB Program website gives us tuberculosis in numbers as of 2024, with 500,000 TB cases currently, 3,205 facilities nationwide, and 3,000 TB laboratories also nationwide. So we have the National Tuberculosis Control Program. And as in the website, it was organized in 1978 and operating within a devolved healthcare delivery system, and is one of the public health programs managed and coordinated by the Infectious Disease for Prevention and Control Division, or the IDPCD, of the Disease Prevention and Control Bureau of the Department of Health. So the NTP has the following mandates. First, they develop policies, standards, and national strategic plan, manage program logistics, provide leadership and technical assistance to the lower health offices or units. They manage data and use the information to inform programmatic activities, and they conduct monitoring and evaluation of tuberculosis in the country. So we have now here the 2020 National Tuberculosis Control Program Manual of Procedures, and it's already on its 6th edition. So this is a comprehensive guide for Philippine National Tuberculosis Control Program, outlining the policies, the guidelines, and procedures for TB diagnosis, treatment, and control within the country's health system. So the NTP's TB diagnostic and treatment protocols and even strategies issued through its Manual of Procedures are based on the policies of the World Health Organization and the International Standards for TB Care, or the ISTC. So what is new in the 2020 Manual of Procedures? There was more emphasis on patient-centered care, and it includes guidelines for both drug-susceptible tuberculosis and drug-resistant tuberculosis. There is also an immense guidelines on preventive treatment of tuberculosis. So what does the Manual of Procedures say about the screening? It focused on intensified case finding in health facilities. Of course, most of the TB cases go there for management. And active case finding in targeted communities, workplace, and congregate settings. So in the workplace setting, the priority includes minors, construction workers, public health transport drivers, and garment factory workers. The congregate settings would include jails, detention centers, and residential homes or residential care facilities for the elderly, disabled, and orphans, as well as crowded living places. Example, evacuation centers for internally displaced population. So the priority target population groups in the community are both the urban and the rural poor. And we have also the enhanced case finding, or the ECF, and this is a systematic screening in the community using symptom screening such as house-to-house visit by community workers and asking them for constitutional TB symptoms, probably of fever, of cough, and weight loss. So here I will give you an overview of what intensified case finding is. So the healthcare worker would usually ask for the following signs and symptoms lasting for 2 or more weeks. So you ask for cough, unexplained fever, unexplained weight loss, and night sweats. So if you have one or more of these symptoms, you are already considered presumptive TB. And the healthcare worker would already request expert MTB-RIF test. So what is the expert MTB-RIF test? It's a Mycobacterium tuberculosis rifampicin test, which is a rapid molecular test, and it's used to diagnose TB and identify if the TB bacteria that is present is resistant to the drug rifampin. So this test is actually crucial for rapidly diagnosing TB and guiding appropriate treatment, as the rifampin resistance indicates the need for a different drug regimen. So at the left side, if there are no constitutional symptoms, you can request for chest x-ray, and if the chest x-ray is suggestive of TB, usually you see densities at the apex area of your lungs in the radiograph. So if there is finding suggestive of TB, you are already considered presumptive TB, and you do request for expert MTB-RIF test. But if there are no chest x-ray finding, then the consultation should be for other diseases. For the active case finding, so you have to screen everyone by chest x-ray annually. If it's suggestive of TB, identify already as presumptive TB and request expert MTB-RIF test. If the x-ray turns out not suggestive of TB, then there is the end of evaluation. And for the expert MTB-RIF result interpretation, so we have the following notations and the corresponding interpretation. If you see T, it would mean that Mycobacterium tuberculosis is detected, but rifampicin resistance is not detected. When you see RR, it means that Mycobacterium tuberculosis is detected and rifampicin resistance is also detected. When you see TI, Mycobacterium tuberculosis again is detected, but rifampicin resistance is indeterminate. When you see N, it's not detected. You see I, it's invalid. There is no results or there is an error. And this warrants a repeat expert MTB RIF test. So the sputum microscopy usually involves collecting deep cuff sputum sample. So usually they collect 2 spot samples. And then the TB lab test is a loop-mediated isothermal amplification assay for diagnosing pulmonary TB directly from sputum samples as well. So they are usually used as follow-up to your sputum microscopy, or usually used when sputum microscopy is negative. So when it's positive, at least one sputum smear is positive for acid-fast bacilli. When it's negative, both sputum smears are negative for acid-fast bacilli. So I will give you a brief diagnosis of TB in children. So when we say children, that is less than 15 years old. So 15 years old and above are considered already adults in the TB management in the Philippines. So we start with a presumptive TB child, and we have to establish whether the TB is pulmonary or extrapulmonary. When we are thinking of pulmonary TB, we ask the child to expectorate sputum or gastric lavage sample if it is available. And from there, we do the expert MTB RIF test. And when it comes out positive for Mycobacterium tuberculosis with or without rifampicin resistance, it is already considered a bacteriologically confirmed TB. But when the expert MTB RIF comes out negative, or the patient cannot expectorate for some reason, we request chest X-ray if it's not yet done. And if it's strongly suggestive of TB with clinical signs and symptoms of tuberculosis, then we call this already clinically diagnosed TB. If the chest X-ray is normal or uncertain, so we consider giving broad-spectrum antibiotics, and then we let the patient follow up after 2 weeks. But if signs and symptoms persists, we have the following options, no? If the contact or a child is a contact of a known TB case, we already can classify the child as a clinically diagnosed TB as well. So if the child is not a contact of any known TB case, we perform the tuberculin skin test. This is what also is known as the Mantoux test, no? It's an intradermal skin test that helps determine if a patient has been infected with tuberculous bacteria. So a healthcare professional injects a PPD, or your purified protein derivative, under the skin of your forearm, and the healthcare professional then checks for a firm swollen reaction called your induration, usually 48 to 72 hours after the injection. So a positive induration suggests TB infection, but this does not necessarily mean the person has active TB disease. So if the skin test comes out positive, you may classify already as clinically diagnosed TB. If it's negative or unavailable but signs and symptoms are persistent, you already refer to a specialist, usually pulmonologist, for further investigation and management. So, if referral not possible, attending physician to decide based on the best clinical judgment. So, consider if clinically unstable or if with other risk factors for TB, you could already treat also as clinically diagnosed tuberculosis. So for the TB disease registration, it is a new case if a patient who has never had treatment for TB or who has taken anti-TB drugs for less than 1 month. So isoniazid preventive therapy or other preventive regimens are not considered as previous TB treatment. Okay? So when you say retreatment case, a patient who has been previously treated with anti-TB drugs for at least 1 month in the past is considered retreatment case already. So under retreatment cases, we have relapse. And these are previously treated for TB and declared cured or treatment completed but is presently diagnosed with active TB disease. So we have also treatment after failure. They are previously treated for TB but failed most recent course based on a positive sputum microscopy follow-up at 5 months or later, or a clinically diagnosed TB patient who does not show clinical improvement anytime during the treatment. So treatment after loss to follow-up. So these are previously treated for TB but did not complete treatment and lost to follow-up for at least 2 months in the most recent course. Next, we have the previous treatment outcome unknown, previously treated for TB, but whose outcome in the most recent course is unknown. Probably the healthcare practitioner wasn't able to tell them or the patient forgot. Patient with a known previous TB treatment history, these are patients who do not fit any of the categories listed above or previous treatment history is unknown. So this group will be considered as previously treated as well. So we have categories of drug resistance. Should there be drug resistance in the patient? When we say monoresistance, there is resistance to one anti-tuberculosis drug only. When we say polyresistance, there is resistance to more than one anti-tuberculosis drug other than both isoniazid and rifampicin. When we say multiple drug resistance, there is resistance to at least isoniazid and rifampicin. And when we say extensive drug resistance, there is resistance to any fluoroquinolone, usually levofloxacin, and at least one of the 3 injectable second-line drugs. We have the capreomycin, kanamycin, and amikacin, in addition to multiple drug resistance. So here's the treatment regimen for drug-sensitive TB. Okay, we have 2. We have the regimen 1, which consists of 2 HRZE followed by 4 HR, and regimen 2, which consists of 2 HRZE followed by 10 HR. So when we say 2 HRZE, it means 2 months of isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol, followed by 4 HR, which would mean 4 months of isoniazid and rifampicin. So please, at this point, take note of the letters assigned to each of the anti-TB medication. So here, eligible TB patients for regimen 1 would be pulmonary and extrapulmonary tuberculosis except the central nervous system, bones, and joints, whether new or retreatment, with final expert result of MTB-RIF sensitive, MTB-RIF indeterminate, new PTB or new extrapulmonary TB except CNS, bones, joints, with positive sputum microscopy TB lamp, or clinically diagnosed and either expert not done or expert result is MTB not detected. For the regimen 2, so we have 2 HRZE, which would mean 2 months of isoniazid, rifampicin, pyrazinamide, and ethambutol, followed by 10 HR. So that is 10 months of isoniazid and rifampicin. So the eligible TB patients for regimen 2 would be extrapulmonary TB. That was the exception in regimen 1. So these are the extrapulmonary TB of CNS, the bones, joints, whether new or retreatment, with final expert result of MTB-RIF sensitive or MTB-RIF indeterminate. So we also give it to new extrapulmonary TB of the CNS, bones, joints, with positive sputum microscopy or TB lamp or clinically diagnosed, and expert not done or expert result is MTB not detected. So after having those regimen in our patients, we have the following treatment outcomes that are possible. A patient is considered cured if they were sputum smear or culture positive at the start of the treatment, but are already negative by the end of the treatment at least one previous occasion. May it be in the 5th month. No? A patient who finishes the entire course of treatment but without evidence of treatment failure and without negative laboratory tests at the end of the treatment or on previous occasion is already considered treatment completed. So the cured and treatment completed are successful treatment outcomes. What about the unsuccessful treatment outcomes? We also have 3. So first we have the treatment failed. So when we say treatment failed, a patient whose sputum smear or culture remains positive at month 5 or later during the treatment, or the treatment was terminated because evidence of additional acquired resistance, example, rifampicin resistance on expert at the 2nd month, or a patient for whom follow-up sputum examination was not done, example, a child or extrapulmonary TB, and who does not show clinical improvement at any time during the treatment. And lastly, it is failed also if there is severe uncontrolled adverse drug reaction to the medication. Of course, it's still unsuccessful treatment if a patient died. So it is a patient who dies for any reason, not just TB, during the course of their TB treatment. And lost to follow-up or defaulted is a patient who interrupts their treatment for 2 or more consecutive months already. So when we say they are not evaluated, a patient for whom no final treatment outcome was assigned by the healthcare practitioner or the healthcare worker. So when you are signed out as transferred out, these are patients who are referred to another health facility or treatment, but their final outcome is not available within the reporting facility. As for the multiple drug resistant TB and the rifampin or rifampicin resistant TB treatment, we have 3 other regimen. We have regimen 3, 4, and 5. So I don't expect you to memorize this, but it's sufficient for you to know that there are 3 regimen available for your drug-resistant TB. So we have regimen 3 or the standard short all-oral regimen or the SSOR, regimen 4 or the standard long all-oral regimen for fluoroquinolone susceptible or the SLOR FQS, S for susceptible. And finally, regimen 5 as the standard long all-oral regimen for fluoroquinolone resistance, or the SLOR-FQR, R for resistance. And of course, we have the individualized treatment regimen, or the ITR. And this is for the retreatment of multiple drug-resistant TB and rifampicin-resistant TB cases, which are not eligible for SSOR or SLOR. So also in the manual, we have individuals eligible for TB preventive treatment. So these individuals include persons living with HIV age 1 year and older regardless of history of contact. So with or without contact with an active TB case, they are already considered individuals eligible for TB preventive treatment as long as they are living with HIV. All household contacts of bacteriologically confirmed PTB, children less than 5 years old who are household contacts of clinically diagnosed PTB, close contacts of bacteriologically confirmed outside the household, and other risk groups. So these are patients receiving dialysis, patients preparing for an organ or hematological transplantation just because their immunological systems are suppressed, patients initiating anti-tumor necrosis factor treatment, and patients with silicosis. So for the TB preventive treatment regimen for these patients needing preventive treatment, we have actually 4 options, no? So we have 6 hours of isoniazid daily, and it's currently available under the program. We have 3 months of isoniazid and rifampicin weekly. So it's weekly dosing for 3 months, but it's contraindicated in pregnant patients and patients less than 2 years old. And then we have 3 months of isoniazid and rifampicin daily, and this is preferred for children if the 3 months of isoniazid rifampicin weekly is not available. Lastly, we have the 4 months of rifampicin daily, and it's preferred naman for adults if the 3 HP is not available. So this is another clinical practice guideline for the diagnosis and treatment of adult tuberculosis, and it was updated in 2021. It is published by the Philippine Coalition Against Tuberculosis, or the PhilCat, updating the 2016 CPG for tuberculosis, and this is done to harmonize with and complement the most recent NTP-MOP 6th edition on TB, to reduce practice variability among public and private health practitioners and improve detection, treatment, and other clinical outcomes in adult patients diagnosed with tuberculosis. So it's just similar, just focusing on adult patients. So how does PhilHealth, our partner in health, cover for tuberculosis, no? So if you go to the PhilHealth website, you will see tuberculosis under the Sustainable Development Goal related diseases. Okay? So PhilHealth has an outpatient tuberculosis directly observed treatment short course, or the TB-DOTS benefit package, and it's around 5,200, and members can avail of it at any PhilHealth accredited TB-DOTS center. So outpatient anti-tuberculosis treatment through the directly observed treatment short course package would have about 3,250 pesos for the intensive phase and 1,950 pesos for the maintenance phase, amounting to 5,200 for the package. So it's also good to know that we also have a Republic Act number 10767 in April of 2016. It mandates that all public and private health centers, hospitals, and facilities observe the National Protocol on TB Management and notify Department of Health of all TB cases as prescribed under the Manual of Procedures of the National TB Program. So what lies ahead in the future of tuberculosis management? In 2023, there were 3 new diagnostic products to detect drug-resistant TB as recommended by the WHO. There are more than 29 clinical drug trials and other research studies for treatment of TB infection, and there are 28 drugs for treatment of TB disease in clinical trials as of late. And there are 16 vaccine candidates in clinical trials as well. Currently, there are no vaccines against the development of TB in individuals. So each year, we celebrate World TB Day every March 24. So this is to raise public awareness about the devastating health, social and economic consequences of tuberculosis and to step up efforts to end the global TB epidemic. So this date marks the day in 1882 when Robert Koch announced that he had discovered the bacterium that causes TB, which has opened the way towards diagnosing and curing the disease. So for this year, the theme is Yes, We Can End TB, Commit, Invest, and Deliver. So it offers an opportunity to reflect on ongoing efforts and encourage stronger commitment at the local, national, and international levels to end TB, including by combating the growing threat of drug-resistant TB. So in summary, we have discussed global and Philippine burden of tuberculosis and of course the different Philippine programs for tuberculosis. And here are our references. Thank you and good day.